Bien, saludamos a todos los participantes.
We'd like to greet all the participants, more than 1,000 people following us from all over the world. Thanks, everybody. We are in Córdoba, Argentina, the place where you will find those beautiful places that you saw on the videos, the first global forum on tourism and economic development in the framework of the 5th World Forum on Local Economic Development. Now we'd like to introduce the following roundtable.
New tools to travel. Moderated by Inmaculada Benito, who is the director of the Department of Tourism, Culture and Sports of the Spanish Confederation of Business Organizations. Since January, she joined the department, and she's been participating in all of the forums organized by the organization. Besides this, she is the secretary to the Tourism Council and the Commission of Sports and Culture. Inmaculada has been part of Iberostar Group. She joined the company in the Department of Operation as Deputy Chief Operations Officer. In the last 2 years, she was the director of the CEO office in charge of institutional relations. She was connected with hotel associations and also connected with public works. Inmaculada has a degree from the University of Navarra and also the Pontificia University of Camilia, and also a postgraduate degree that was delivered by ESADE and also by the UVE, and she has a master's in hospitality management, and she is a graduate in tourism by the University of Islas Baleares. Inmaculada, welcome, and thank you for joining this panel. I'd like to introduce the panelists. Good afternoon, and thank you, Laura, for this introduction. I believe it is an honor for us to have all of the panel members in this roundtable to discuss the tools that would allow traveling in the future and that would allow decision-making processes, tools that will transcend the pandemics and will be with us because they will be synonyms of security and that would allow us to coexist with similar health issues. Let me introduce first Boris Padilla. Boris, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Boris is the Aviation's Solution Manager and Business Intelligence of IATA, representing many airline companies and supporting aeronautic activities, aviation activities, and supports the policy making in aviation. Boris is going to discuss everything that has to do with IATA Travel Pack that some companies are already using, so that will sort of, you will discuss the before and after the initiative. And then Paul Mayer. Paul is the CEO of the Commons Project. He is the co-founder and executive director of the Commons Project, a nonprofit trust that is supported by Rockefeller to unleash the potential of technology and data for common well-being. And he was he left the White House after President Bill Clinton's office, and then he became the first director of operations of Endeavor, a nonprofit organization supporting entrepreneurs from around the globe. So I could continue reading his background about what they have to share is so important. And Peter Lowe will not be able to join us today. He's traveling. He had some, but he sent us a video. Then we're going to play the video so we can listen to his ideas and everything he has to say about Immuniv. So, Boris, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Thank you, Inmaculada, and thank you for this invitation so we can share the tools that are demanded by the industry to try to mitigate COVID-19 and reopen the markets. I would like to share my screen so you can have access to my presentation so you know what Travel Pass is about. Travel Pass is a tool that is open, an open tool so that all airliners and institutions around the globe can consume or use their features. And let me just highlight a few things. I mean, the pillars of Travel Pass, basically in the aviation industry, have been for 60 years providing services to airliners worldwide with visa validations and health protocols. We do this by Timatic, and so the validation of health protocols against the database that we have in IATA, and as it validates the protocols, then we, customers and airliners and governments can then, the kind of solutions that are provided are more secure. For example, in terms of vaccines, and we also developed a digital passport that is supported by WASI, and this digital passport, through this passport, the customers have all of the information, so the identity can be validated when the Travel Pass is downloaded on the cell phone. The Travel Pass was designed to be to be used in all airliners, so each airliner can use Travel Pass as a background tool, as a background app. But we had to record all of the laboratories worldwide to be able to be more efficient in terms of pointing out the best laboratories that are performing the tests, and the laboratory gets in touch with the customer to provide the customers with the test results. So the lab, they can send the data of the PRC or vaccine results or test results, can do this via the system, and then the data is received on the cell phone of the customer. Just for you to have a quick overlook at how it works, first thing, the customer has to validate and scan the passport. It just reads the chip of the passport or scan the passport, and then a selfie, and then a live video just to make sure the person is alive, right? And so once identity is validated, then the customer has access to the route, to the itinerary, and then the customer can make an appointment with the lab and then get the result of the test. Once the results are sent by the lab, then the Travel Pass application validates against the Timatic database three things. First of all, that the test was conducted in a lab that is registered. Secondly, that the test complies with the destination requirements. If the customer goes to Paris, for example, it'll check all of the protocol regulations and standards. And thirdly, it'll validate that the test complies with the deadlines, because you know that many countries worldwide demand a specific time range of 72 hours. So once these three things are validated, the customer is given an okay to travel, and this is shared with the airliner. And this is the benefit. 100% of what we are after is, I mean, we're just managing 15% of passengers around the world, but airliners have to validate manually and through documents and papers information that makes the process more bureaucratic. It delays the process. So once you get the okay to travel, then the airline doesn't have to validate the test or the vaccination certificate. So the check is performed online via a website or different stands or stations. And this is done automatically 24 hours or 48 hours before the flight. Then you'll be able to, you can validate the information, and this is going to, the traveling experience will be more efficient, more comfortable for the customers, because we are forecasting an increase in the volumes of travel during summertime. Then we cannot have the current process without more advanced technology. And this is where Travel Pass comes into place, so airliners can systematically and more efficiently and in a safer way can mitigate COVID-19 impact and also support governments in mitigating. Currently, we have over 55 airliners which are actively testing or trying Travel Pass in many markets around the world. So Travel Pass, I think, will be one of the most relevant solutions to be able to help the customers, airliners, and governments to reopen the markets and mitigate COVID-19 in those markets. Do you have any questions? Thank you, Boris, for your presentation. Then we'll give the floor now to Peter. We'll give the floor to Peter, and then Paul, and then we'll have some time for question and answers.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me today. I'm excited to share what we're doing at the Commons Project, what we're doing specifically with Common Pass, which is one of the leading solutions that's currently deployed with many of the world's largest airlines like United and JetBlue and Delta and Lufthansa and others. We come at this from a very different perspective. IATA has been in the airline business for 70 years. We come from the world of health. And when we began the Commons Project, our first platform that we built and launched was called Common Health. It's the equivalent of Apple Health for Android phones around the world. So it's a platform for people to collect, store, and share their health information. Our mission is about improving health and providing a trusted place for people to collect, store, and manage their health information to improve health. And so our whole approach to this problem stems from our foundation in health and building on open health data standards and having built a global network of health organizations that are joining us on this mission. We were working on this long before before COVID. We'll be working on this long after COVID. When COVID happened, we did realize, though, that there was a new reason that people needed access to their health information, which was to solve the problem of being able to travel again and cross borders. And so we launched an initiative last summer called Common Pass, which is really the first initiative to demonstrate. You've just seen IATA Travel Pass looks quite similar based on the concepts that and the model that we developed at Common Pass. But basically, it is a tool for people to collect their lab results or their vaccination records, demonstrate that they satisfy the rules of the destination, and then be able to let them prove their status while protecting their privacy. And we first did our trials last fall with United and Cathay Pacific, have done trials with dozens of airlines around the world, but as I mentioned, are now actually in full production. We've moved well beyond the trial phase and into full production operation. So today, you can use Common Pass for all flights into Hawaii to prove your status, or to Aruba, or from Germany to the US, and these production deployments are really, really scaling. As I said, there's a big difference between trials and full production implementations. What we did when we began, obviously, it was before vaccines had been approved, and so we focused very much on testing, and we built a global network of labs that are connected using open interoperable standards. We launched this in close collaboration with the World Economic Forum, which is why it's gotten such global momentum, and why we've been able to bring in governments and health institutions all around the world. We're beginning. So we have now health partners in 32 countries, and that number is likely to exceed 100 within the next few weeks. But these partners, these health organizations, are organizations that are committed to providing health information to individuals using open interoperable standards for healthcare purposes. Again, there's an urgent travel problem, but this is fundamentally a health problem, and we are absolutely committed to doing this approach, and we think it's important that this be done in a way that empowers people with their health information for healthcare purposes, long past the need to prove your status to travel. So that's really our kind of foundational approach. As I mentioned, the network is currently in 32 countries, will soon exceed 100. The other thing, of course, happened last fall was the advent of the arrival of vaccination records. And so what we did is we co-led an initiative called the Vaccine Credential Initiative that has set the standards, certainly in the US, although the standards are now being adopted by many countries around the world, for digitizing vaccination records. And so we're, over the next 2 to 3 weeks, all of the major U.S. healthcare institutions, the largest pharmacy chains like CVS and Walgreens and Walmart, all of the biggest hospitals and the biggest health technology companies are going to be adopting and implementing the standard that we've created. We've done this in partnership with Microsoft and Apple. So this is a standard that is being adopted, certainly by the entire U.S. healthcare ecosystem. But again, many countries are also adopting it. North Macedonia went live with it today. Many other countries are also adopting the standard. It's analogous to the EU Green certificate standard, but it's certainly the one that the U.S. is adopting because the U.S. government is not itself issuing vaccine credentials. It is the individual health institutions that are actually issuing these kinds of credentials. So again, for these kinds of systems to work, they have to be rooted and connected to healthcare based on the open standards that the healthcare system has developed and will continue to develop. So that's the sort of the model, and again, this is very exciting, not just because it can enable these sorts of travel discussions, but these standards are really laying the groundwork to enable people to get access to their health information in a way that they can control to be able to improve health outcomes in the fullness of time. So again, this is a bit of a diagram in terms of how this all works together. So we have built a very large global network of health institutions that are adopting these standards and making their health information available to individuals. It's open, meaning that data can be held in many different technology platforms like Apple or Google Pay or Samsung Pay. It's not just all in one app. It's an open standard that these data can go into the into the digital wallets and the tools that people use for their regular life. And then Common Pass really is just checking to say, hey, you want to fly to Hawaii today, or you want to fly to the UK or Spain, what are the rules? Show me that your health documents satisfy those rules. I will basically say you're good to go. It's also already in production, integrated through APIs, which means airlines don't have to scan something at the airport. They can do this in a way that's already integrated into their online check-in processes. And again, that's already in production at large scale. These are some of our many partners around the world. Again, we've been able to, we had already worked with most of the, much of the sort of healthcare ecosystem. We're working in very close, active partnership with most of the largest technology companies, certainly the health technology companies, and again, as I said, most of the largest airlines, and already in production working with them. So anyway, there's a quick introduction and overview to both the Commons Project and Common Pass, and look forward to your questions and collaborating with you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Ahora, a continuación, vamos a proceder.
Now we'll go and show Peter's video. As I mentioned at the beginning, he cannot be here with us. So from the technical service, please roll the clip.
Hi, my name is Peter. I'm the co-founder of Imovid, and I'm really happy to join you for this first global forum on tourism and economic development. Unfortunately, I don't know if I can be there live because COVID has made me change travel plans, so I decided to pre-record this. And I'm looking forward to tell you about Imovid and the company Next Plane behind it, and how we approach this pandemic and the technological challenges that brought to us. So I'm just going to start presenting here and go straight into it. So we come from a different background compared to these speakers that we all just listened to. We come from the world of state security, homeland security, very border control, which means we have a very different perspective on the way that COVID-19 has affected mobility and what needs to be done to make things better. So very briefly, we're a group of companies. We're around the world, grew up in Switzerland, but now also even in Dubai. And what you see in terms of our expertise, what's not involved was our life before COVID came. And then COVID came and we started to develop in a different direction because it became really necessary. We also started to focus on different standards as they developed in real time. And we have now got a platform that is developed with several solutions that are relevant to allow mobility to really become sustainable again during the pandemic. Very quickly, there are 4 areas. 2 of them are maybe not that relevant to this conversation, but the last 2 of them are. However, before I start, just quickly, why did we start developing this? What are our core drivers? First of all, not controlling is not an option. These 3 stories you see here, unfortunately, are all very new. Right, UK, highly vaccinated country, seems like it might be going back into another wave. There are new viruses coming up the whole time that might need to be checked in the future. And as our colleague from IATA would have told you, there is a study out that says that if we don't find a way to make to control these new health passports, COVID-19 passports, vaccination credentials, in a more systemic way, then we really are going to have disrupted travel for a long period of time. That is too costly. The really core takeaway for us is to understand that identity and health status are now coming together, and they will remain together for a very long time. This is important because it changes the way in which strategies need to be developed to make people flow across borders and into spaces that need to be controlled. And this is a big moment, actually, from our perspective. We see an end to the first phase of reaction to COVID-19 and formal mobility, which was crisis, which was making decisions quickly in order to protect people, going into an area of now there are going to be standards like HL7 on fire that can be used to really homogenize the way in which we interoperate with these systems. And there's technology. So the platform we developed is called Imovid, and we work in 4 different areas. So on the one hand, we work with governments. With governments, this is really about helping them to develop, from a technological perspective, vaccination programs, the creation of digital certificates of vaccination and of immunity in order to ensure that they are on a standard that is then interoperable with the rest of the world, and that they are capable also of validating these new credentials that will be flooding onto the market very soon in their countries. This is where we come from. We come from state border control, from migration, and all governments in the world now need to learn how to include, how to integrate COVID-19 or any other future health credential into border control processes. And if we don't get this right, then the airline queues are going to look like they look now for a long time. But there's life on the other side of the border, and as I mentioned, I think this might be much more relevant to the conversation, which is from our perspective is that there will definitely be rules and regulations that will apply to what type of credential, health credential, might be necessary on the other side of the border if someone wants to go to a concert, if they want to go to a sports game, if they want to go to a trade fair, for instance, where there's a need of public health to control who gets in. So we've developed a universal credential, health credential validation system that can really interoperate, and there are many of them to interoperate with. Let's take the IATA travel pass is one. Then we have the new digital green certificate that will be available to more than 400 million Europeans in the future, and similar legislative projects around the world, all on a very similar standard. We have, I'm in Dubai, here they have a platform called Al Hosn, which is not the same as the other. There are differences between them, and every day there are more. And the ability to interoperate with all of them and validate all of them and confirm that they're in compliance with the local legislation, that is where we see it could really bring a really big win for tourism. And lastly, we're also aware that there are many tourist destinations that have digital platforms, apps, and other platforms that they would like to onboard tourists onto, that have been onboarding onto. But since your COVID credential is now a relevant part of your tourist experience, the same need exists also for the tourist destination, which is how are we going to allow any tourist from anywhere in the world with a valid health credential, COVID credential, to onboard really quickly onto existing platforms. We've developed such a platform, and we are looking forward to its.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias. Estamos fuera de tiempo. Por eso hemos...
Thank you. We're running out of time. That's why we interrupted the presentation. I think there are many questions, and the technology is here, solutions are here to be able to balance health, economy, and health issues and the circumstances we're going through, and also be able to reopen and develop our travel. We look forward that officials and authorities can actually support us, and so the recovery of tourism and mobility becomes true. Thank you, Boris, Paul, and Peter, even though Peter is really far from here. But I really look forward to meeting you again. Thank you very much for your participation, and thanks to our audience. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Inmaculada Benito, for moderating and for coordinating the panel. We know, and it's clear, that there will be new documents for travelers after this pandemic, lots of credentials and platforms that we will have to download in our phones, and those will be the ones that will allow us to travel. We're going to have a 10-minute break. We'll continue seeing videos of the city of Córdoba, the host city in this forum, and then we'll come back with a new panel for this day in the forum. Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Maria Concepcion Garcia. I'm Vice Dean of Employability and Entrepreneurship of the Complutense of Brazil, a university where I was the dean before of its tourism and trade school. Our university is the largest one in Spain in terms of the number of students and the faculty members and scientific production, and one of the oldest and most prestigious ones in Europe and around the world. I'm very pleased to participate in this first local forum on tourism and economic development. I invite you to participate in all the sessions and in the interesting activities that we have for you. Look forward to seeing you there in the first local forum on tourism and economic development.
Hay un lugar donde el día y la noche se disfrutan distinto, pero con la misma intensidad. Un lugar que lo tiene todo y que está en el centro de todo. A donde llegas fácilmente, pero que es difícil abandonar. Un lugar con historia, con presente, con futuro. Un lugar que te sorprende, te emociona, te enamora. Un lugar donde se disfrutan todos los placeres y se calman todos los apetitos. Solo, acompañado, bien acompañado o muy acompañado. Disfruta Córdoba ciudad.